Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. I took off, I think, all of last week. Yeah, all of last week. And the reason for that is just the whole political climate. The temperature was a little too hot on the internet. I mean, on any given day, people are kind of nasty enough to each other on the internet, but with this whole election thing, it's definitely gone up a notch, and I didn't want any part of it. I didn't want to see it anymore. I've had my fill. And so I basically took the week off. I'm back now, and I do want to keep this politics free, but I think there's going to be like a little bit in here, and I hope that it stays sort of nonpartisan. Both, I expect that what I'm going to say is nonpartisan, but I hope that we don't make this partisan in the comments. So far what I'm really happy about is I went to the mailbox today, no political mailings, and I haven't gotten any texts from either party since, Tuesday. I'm also looking forward to being able to watch a football game once again without every other commercial being a political attack ad. You know, get back to some Jardiance ads and some erectile dysfunction ads. Now, a topic I covered in the last podcast was about LMNT, the electrolyte drink, and the sort of scandal or controversy, I don't know what you call it, but around the inclusion of maltodextrin in their product. And I want to talk about that just a little bit more, but before I start, I do want to say that I've heard nothing but positive comments regarding LMNT's customer service. I have personally not dealt with them at all as a company, so I do not have an opinion of them one way or another. But like I said, I've heard that their customer service is very good. Now, I tend to be, for better or worse, sort of a give people the benefit of the doubt sort of person. So if we take what LMNT has said, which is that they were unaware that their natural flavorings provider was increased or had increased the amount of maltodextrin as a flavor carrier in their natural flavors, it still doesn't sit all that well with me. I mean, worst case scenario, and I'm not accusing LMNT of this, but worst case scenario is they knew about it and they were deceptive. But let's look at best case scenario, which is we didn't know. We didn't know that our supplier had maltodextrin in the product. To me, you're still guilty of negligence. One of the things that I tell myself, and this is sort of like a daily affirmation that I make and try and use it to guide my behavior, is that everything I do, say, or think is part of my brand. So if something is coming to me and then I'm passing it on to you, that is part of my brand. If I review a product and I tell you it's great and I actually don't believe it's great, or I don't know, maybe it spikes my glucose, but I don't tell you about that, then that reflects on me. That reflects poorly on me. So when you get an ingredient and you put it into your product, that now is your product. I'm going to share a metaphor here, and hopefully it doesn't bother anyone too much, but when you take a firearm safety training class, the very first thing, or one of the very first things they tell you, it is probably the first thing, is that you always assume a gun is loaded. If someone hands you a gun and says this gun is not loaded, you don't trust that. You do not trust a firearm until you have observed it yourself. You make sure that the magazine is empty, there's nothing in the chamber. That's what you need to do, because the moment you are in possession of that firearm, you own it. You own whatever happens. And it's the same thing. I was going to say, I hope that that metaphor didn't trigger anybody, but that would have been a really horrible pun. Anyhow, it's the same thing with ingredients. The moment you put your label on a product, you own it. You own what's in it, and you should have been testing. And it reminds me of another story, metaphor, and I forget where I heard this. It might have been Adam Carolla. I'm not sure. It might have been in one of his books that I read many years ago. But he talked about if a pilot crashes your plane into a mountain, whether he was doing it because he was evil or whether he was doing it because he didn't know what he was doing, he was incompetent, the result is the same. And that's sort of my position here on the whole LMNT thing. Now, I hope that whatever the case is, that there's a lesson learned. That, maybe they change suppliers, maybe they look at a different flavor carrier. For example, you could use acacia gum as a flavor carrier. So we'll see what happens there. I will, however, be doing one more iodine test video. I'm trying to get together as many different little single-serving packets of various brands of electrolyte drinks that I can try out and just do them all at once, sort of rapid fire. So that could be coming probably within the next week or two. So stay tuned for that. I think what bothers me the most about this overall situation is, well, there's two things really. One is it magnifies my distrust in nutritional information and ingredient labels. The USDA just allows for too much latitude in both of those things, in how you can label things in terms of nutritional information, and I think how you can calculate net carbs and talk about net carbs on a package, but also the ability to legally sort of hide ingredients under the heading of natural ingredients. And it's frustrating. I've done videos about how to read labels, but even if you know how to read a label properly and look for things, it doesn't matter anymore because they're just not that trustworthy. I mentioned net carbs, for example. I mean, well, you can get away with calling fiber, apparently. There's a lot of latitude to it. And given some of these products that are labeled 0 net carbs, and then I test my blood glucose and I still see a spike from them, that fiber is not passing through my body unmetabolized. There is something going on there. So we can't trust net carbs. We can't trust the nutritional information, with some of the rounding that you can do in terms of the USDA. We can't trust natural flavors. So what do? I guess we can be afraid of everything. We can, just anytime we see any natural flavors on a package, we say, no, we're not going to buy it. We could just only count total carbs. I think that's a reasonable solution. Or we trust but verify. You try out a product and you see what happens. You see, does it knock me out of ketosis? Does it cause me inflammation? Do I get headaches from it? And then we as a community sort of crowdsource this information. That's a possibility. Ultimately, though, what I would love to see is somehow this whole thing gets elevated, not as an element issue, but as a labeling issue. And that in a nonpartisan way, our government can somehow straighten this out. Take a look at it, overhaul the USDA or the FDA or both. Start requiring greater transparency in terms of labeling, both ingredients and nutritional information. That's what I hope. But at the same time, we've got the government and we've got lobbying agencies and we got a lot of money out there. And whenever that happens, it makes it hard for me to be trustful and optimistic. So that's where I'm at on this whole subject. I don't know if I articulated it very well. I've got a lot of sort of complicated feelings about all of this, and most of them aren't positive. But I still, fingers crossed, I'm hoping that there is something positive that comes out of all of this. One other thing I want to mention about the couple of videos that I've done on maltodextrin, both last week's or 2 weeks ago's podcast and then the maltodextrin testing I did with iodine. On both of those videos, I saw a number of comments get deleted. Some were pro-element, some were anti-element, some were just talking about maltodextrin in general, and they disappeared. Some disappeared as I was leaving replies to them, which is very weird. I'm typing out a nice reply, and I hit send, and then I get some sort of a weird Google error message that comes up, and I hit refresh, and the comment is gone. So I don't know exactly what's going on. There was one of the viewers who I actually know, and I asked him, did you delete your own comment? Just in case. And he said, no, I didn't. So these deletions are coming from YouTube. I don't know why. I didn't see anything in any of these comments that I think was offensive or that violated the community guidelines of YouTube. I'm not sure what happened, but I want you to know if you left a comment and it disappeared, it wasn't Steve that made it disappear. Okay, I think we can put that topic to bed. I'm going to move on to some shorter subjects, and it's probably going to be fairly rapid fire subjects here for the remainder of the podcast, looking at my list down here. First thing, daylight savings time. What the heck? The older I get, it seems like the more it affects me. Why does it take me a week for my body to adjust to daylight savings time? I don't know. It's weird. I think it takes about a week for me to wake up and look at the clock and trust what time it is. But I sure wish we would just settle on something like either keep it all the time or get rid of it all the time. I don't see a whole lot of value to it in this day and age. But that's short topic number 1. Short topic number 2. Hey, if you're ever looking for something really not very fun to do, install gutter guard. So it's like those little things that keep leaves from getting into your eaves and gutters on your roof. That is not a tremendous amount of fun. It is some fairly good exercise though, going up and down a ladder multiple times, like multiple times. I discovered that there were some muscles in my glutes that I did not know existed. Very sore the next day. The other thing too is if you have a cooking channel or any sort of a channel where your hands get seen a lot, wear gloves when you're installing gutter guard. My hands took an absolute beating, and I probably should have worn gloves. See, here's the thing, and I told you a few weeks ago from time to time I'll kind of really go off of keto in terms of topics. When I got my first job, I was 14 years old, and it was a summer job. My dad owned a small trucking company, and I got a job as the lowest person on the totem pole in the company. I believe my official title was shop rat. I did all of the really least pleasant truck maintenance duties in a shop. And my very first day when my dad introduced me to the shop foreman, his name was Red, because he had red hair and a red beard, but he did the old show me your hands. And, he took my hands and he's like, clearly my hands were as soft as a newborn baby's bottom. They were ballerina soft, super soft hands, and I really felt almost ashamed, when holding my hands in his calloused hands. And I thought, I'm gonna have tough hands one day. And as a result, I've kind of not used any sort of gloves when I'm doing a lot of work that probably I should be wearing gloves on. And my hands have just taken a beating over the years. There's all manner of scars and things like that. This is my problem. I need to get over it. And if you do install gutter guard, wear some gloves. In fact, I would recommend get a pair of mechanics gloves. They're a lot better. You have a lot better sort of a dexterity and sense of touch through them than you do using like gardening gloves. So, free tip. Not keto related, but free. All right, back to sort of a keto topic. One of the things that I'm starting to see an awful lot on the internet, especially in my Facebook feed, but I think also in Instagram and maybe on my Google News feed, I am seeing what are, if you know what to look for, pretty obvious AI-generated recipes, including keto recipes. For example, there was one on how do you make keto corn chips or keto tortilla chips. And the picture is really kind of an odd food picture. It was a big bowl, and it appeared to be full of Doritos, like the nacho cheese flavor. You know what they look like. It's obvious. I mean, I can tell the difference between a Dorito and a high-low tortilla chip, the keto-friendly tortilla chip. It's pretty obvious that something was not made at home. And it's on this bowl, and the bowl is on a tree stump outside, naturally. And then in the background, there's a campfire going. I've seen multiple pictures of multiple foods by different posters, and it still has that same sort of picture. It's some food item on a tree stump with a campfire in the background. That's one giveaway. When you see really weird food pictures in terms of the settings, or if you look at it and you're like, okay, I know what real bread looks like. You did not make this with almond flour. But then you look at the recipes themselves, and if you've got any sort of cooking experience, you look at it and you're like, these ingredients, this doesn't add up to me. This doesn't feel right. I don't think this is going to turn into a tortilla chip. And I'm quite certain that it's AI. It's AI doing these recipes. You go out to ChatGPT and you say, invent me a picture of keto tortilla chips and give me a recipe. And I know this because just recently the plugin that I use for recipe cards on my website, seriousketo.com, now has an AI option. for, I'm not sure if it's generating pictures. It may generate pictures for you, but it can also, you can say, I want to give me a recipe for a keto bread, a keto focaccia, for example, and it'll create something for you. So, when we go back to the beginning of this podcast and I was talking about trust in labeling, now I distrust recipes as well. But what I can tell you is my ego and pride are just way too big to do something like that, to use AI to create a recipe. So you can trust, I hope. I'll say trust but verify, just so I'm not kind of raising myself above my own standards. Trust but verify me that I will always give you a recipe that I either created myself or that I modified from a non-keto source. But this is, yet again, it hurts me kind of inside, being an INFJ personality and being a highly sensitive person, that I can't trust anything anymore, it seems. But let's switch gears and do something a little bit more positive. And this is one that you can help me out and perhaps help out some of your fellow gentlemen that are watching this. Shirts. I've mentioned this before. I fall into a weird place now, somewhere between a large and a medium shirt, depending on the brand. Now, back pre-keto, I was extra large and I was stretching it out. I mean, when I would sit, I'd put on a shirt and I would sit on the edge of the bed and I would bring my knees up like this and pull the shirt over and kind of use my knees to stretch them out so that it wasn't hugging my fat quite so much. Now I'm somewhere between a medium and a large, and I think I've mentioned this in a podcast before. They've got like extra small, they've got extra large. Why don't they have an extra medium? Or a Marge. Put it right between medium and large. That would be great. So here's where I get to the question. If any of you, gentlemen out there, have tried these shirts from True Classic or another brand, like a knockoff brand, if there's a cheaper version, I would love to hear what you thought of them. Because it seems to me that they advertise that they're a little tighter through the arms, which, be cool. Not all of us are Thomas DeLauer and can stretch out sleeves on our own. So yeah, that would be kind of neat. They look like they fit a lot better through the shoulders. I find even lots of times on a large, the shoulder isn't quite where I want it to be. Let me know if you've tried it out. If you have a physique where you're a little bit, bigger up top and you kind of want things to look a little, maybe a little bit tighter, through the midsection. If you've tried out a True Classic or any brand that you can recommend, I would love to hear about it. I really need some decent, silly t-shirts that I can also wear. So please let me know down in the comments below. But I think that is going to be it for this video. I'm trying my best to get back to a regular video release schedule. There have just been a lot of things going on personally, nothing bad, but it's a timing thing. Trying to balance a channel where this is my full-time gig along with various family obligations, and I'm always going to put family first. So sometimes that means we don't get regular videos, but I'm trying. So as I say at the end of every podcast, I really, really, truly appreciate this time that we spend together. I appreciate the interaction that we have in the comments. I appreciate that we've managed to stay apolitical in the comments. So let's see if we can't keep that going. And as always, did I say that already? As always? Well, once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.